Hi folks, so this will be a Q&A. I've got the I have the slate over there. Now it's a bit low on the battery even though it's plugged in, so hopefully things don't go wrong. So viewers 0. Let's see what happens here. Now it's a bit low on the battery even though it's plugged in, so hopefully things don't go wrong. Now will it still update even though it's paused? Or maybe I just got to take the volume right down and then still play it. This means I've got to get right up to date. I've not done this before. I don't know if I have to pause it or not. Can I pause it? Will it still occur? Ah, she has survived. Hi, Sana.
Hello.
I was just wondering if when I have the slate on, do I need to still, if I pause the image, does the live chat also stop?
I don't think so. If it does, then you can just turn down the resolution to the minimum.
Right. Well, should be all right because I've got the volume. I've got it playing at the moment, so at least got some people on here. I think that's there you are. Yeah. That's interesting. And then if I go like this, I wonder if it will then change. I then click on that. Yeah, I was just wondering what would happen. All right then. So we should get questions, and whilst we are waiting for questions, we can have a look at the Enneagram do's and don'ts of talking to people. I think we got up to type 5, didn't we? So what would be your tips for talking to an Enneagram type 5 in terms of do's and don'ts?
I'm trying to think of any 5s that I know.
Okay.
And I can't think of any more.
Okay. Right then. So I'll just go through here. I'll say, is that a little bit, I don't know how far behind that is. Anyway, right, so it's got here discussions about similar interests. So I suppose especially if they also resemble LII and Kersey INTP, they are likely to become more receptive if they're talking about their interests. So they're not going to be doing small talk. Probably similar for the ILI and Kersey INTJs as well. It says here, be open-minded to their ideas. A lot of these things just carry over to most people in general. The only ones that are slightly different in terms of communication are for the Enneagram type 8s, who apparently don't want any fluff at all. So 3 viewers, please leave your questions in the chat, because at the moment all I see is this, and then we can answer some questions about typology. Yeah, I've got to get that live because that is a little bit behind. It should be all right though. All right then, so so that sounds like more, so be open-minded to their ideas sounds like more like LII. And then this third one, be logical and use factual information to present your point. Would you say that's the case with ILIs?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, here's a big one. Don't question their competency. Yeah.
Probably true.
Yeah.
Depends on the person, though.
Yep. Intrusions into their space. Yeah, these are pretty much all, in hindsight, they're all obvious, but I don't know if people sort of have them considered. Here's an interesting one. Don't organize things for them. That might make me think of ILI, of cozy INTJ. So like you can imagine somebody. Is the comment section? You don't see a comment section. There should be a comment. No, it should be a live chat at the side. Somebody sent me a message. There should be a live chat at the side. There should be a live chat to the side of the video in a big, let's say desktop web browser. And underneath, in the Android app, Apple app should be similar. So 3 viewers. There's an interesting one there about don't organize things for them. That might make me think if they're ILI, cozy INTJ. All right, the idea there, if you organize their stuff for them. Okay. Right then. Do you know any 6s, Sana?
I probably do, but no one that I've actually typed.
Just curious, this is about not seeing anything in the live chat. Are you able to go to the watch page, Sana?
Yeah, it works fine for me.
So what can you see in the watch page? Is anybody asking any questions?
No.
Maybe the 2 viewers that we have are ENTP resemblers and they're trolling us.
Well, one of them is probably me.
Right then. So we have, because I did have the message from Amanda. Well, if it doesn't work there, you can ask your question here if you can't find the chat. Here we go. Improvisation under pressure. Oh, I've got to put that to one side then. If you're going to do it like that, then we'll get back to this Enneagram thing, and then I'll. Oh no! Now we are. Right, here we go. She's typing away. That's interesting. Right, okay, so number 6 is rapport tips for number 6. Be positive. Interesting. Oh, we got it. What is the difference between T and F functions? I'll ask. As in thinking and feeling? Or NI and SE? Well, how would you answer that, Sana? The difference between thinking and feeling? It's tricky, isn't it? It's a fundamental question.
I don't think my brain is working too well right now.
That's okay, because Sana is 2 hours ahead of me and it's 2:13 in the morning, so I'll try my best to answer this. The way I think of it is that that feeling is it's like literally an emotion. It's not an ethical thing, because I see an ethical thing as when it's a combination of emotion and logic.
Although it's not necessarily emotion. I mean, not all feelings are emotions. There's a definition you can look up.
It's just my personal view of it. In order to make the distinction really clear, I think that what people talk of as feelings, I think that's a combination of what I call feeling and thinking. Whereas I'm going with the actual feeling without any kind of internal words at all. The raw emotion, that's what I would call feeling. The problem is it all then gets combined together and rationalized. But you did mention a definition. What did the definition say then?
Well, I'm going to have to Google this.
Okay.
I don't remember the actual. But basically, the idea that all emotions are feelings, but not all feelings are emotions.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it's just that my personal belief is that I think that some feelings are emotions plus reasoning.
Yeah, that's a different matter again.
Yeah. Because obviously in, say, something like philosophy, especially in something like libertarianism, there is a lot of combination of thinking and the emotion. So you can have an emotion there of who are these people to tell me what to do, and things like that, and a freedom of, so they can be these sort of urges. Now, what they tend to do with the questions is that then becomes tricky, is when you're trying to write a thinking versus feeling question. They sort of have to come up with situations where they are sort of opposed, and so they might come up with a situation, but there's different kinds of, and I'll give two examples of two situations that will appeal to two different things. The one that will appeal to, say, FE break, and then the other one that will appeal to, say, FI break. And an ILI, so a Kersey INTJ, might actually answer this question differently. So there might be a question about loyalty, and I think that if you phrase the question about loyalty, do you think it's fair to say, Sana, that if an ILI is answering that question, they might think about the relationships that they're in, and that they actually might tick the loyalty box if the question is framed as a loyalty question, and then therefore might score as a feeler in that kind of question.
What was the question?
Okay, it's about because we're talking about the difference between thinking and feeling, and then how, say, somebody would come up with that as a question in a type indicator. And I was thinking that if they came up with a situation which was about loyalty, so feelings of loyalty versus that, but I would think that because the ILI, Kersey INTJ folks, is a loyal person, they would pick the loyal answer and therefore might score as a feeler on that question. That's sort of what I mean.
It's going to depend on the question, the actual question.
Yeah, I mean, because I can't think of one off the top of my head, but say one about loyalty where, say it's, if you promise to do your friend this certain thing with this friend, and then this other opportunity cropped up. It's hard to, because a little bit of JP comes in there as well, so it's hard to come up. But I would think that with the ILI, they have sort of like a fewer relationships, but they tend to be stronger relationships. So they might score as, but that's just the nature of their introverted feeling with close bonds. Whereas if you had a question which was about, say, do you want to do your thing? Do you want to do things your way or the way the group wants to do it? Then the INTJ would click, hell no, I'll do things the way I think they should be done, rather than the group. Because to them, that's just a group of people that they're not involved with, that they don't know. They're not their personal relationships where they do care about loyalty. So you have a thinking versus feeling. So you can have thinking versus feeling questions where you have to account for both extroverted thinking and introverted thinking and extroverted feeling and introverted feeling. So you can get some weird situations there. It's just that I can't really think. So what would be next? Any more questions? I'll say.
I tried to put.
Go on.
I tried to put a link about the emotion versus feeling thing, but it doesn't let me send links, so I'll just send it to you.
Okay.
Probably.
Right then. So let's have a look at this. I might even share my screen on this so that folks can. Here we go. Right, I will share the screen so that we can see what's going on. In fact, I have a cunning plan. I'm going to do something that Bradley taught me. Where is it? Oh, it's not available. Is it? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'll do it now anyway. Here we go. People can see this. Right. Right, so this is what Sana sent me. The difference between feeling and emotion. Sorry, do you want to read that? Folks, you're not very big on a device. I'll try and zoom in a bit. You can yeah, I would say that the way I would define a feeling is that the feeling is independent of words. And then as soon as words come into it, then you got feelings, then you got some thinking coming into it. But we've sort of gone over that before.
Yeah, that's probably true in a lot of cases. It's just not it doesn't explain the difference between feeling and emotion.
Yeah, I was just like trying to get a clear line for the dichotomy. And
yeah.
And it also, this is why you can have, say, with EII, with Kersey INFP, you can have somebody who has these strong feelings, and then they can actually have strong logic that comes in and abstracts from those things. And someone could look at this person and go, wow, they've got strong TI. It's just that it looks like their feelings are leading their TI around. Just because of that, that's their natural preference. So you can get these people, say, where you can get these bright Kersey INFP philosophers, and it's like you'd look at that's good TI that is, but it's like it looks like. But then when you would say that's good TI, based on those being extrapolated from those premises, and those actual premises might be very feeling based. And so you can still see the preference. So you can see the preference for feeling, but then what they do with that, then you could then see, say, the ability with the thinking, but it's not as valued as much as the feeling. So there's development on one side and then there's preference on another. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. Because I sort of got that impression when I did hangouts with Hannah, who's with a master's degree in philosophy, and she's like very ethical person. Like I said, I once introduced her as more likely to spontaneously combust than ever say anything nice about Donald Trump. All right. So that's enough of that. So I'll do the emotion thing. Let's ask for another question from I'll ask for another question from Amanda. Another question, please. So, Sana, do you have a question about Socionics that you wish people would answer?
I came in completely unprepared.
Okay, that's fair enough. Right. Right. So Amanda's seen the message. We should get a. So what I'll do is I'll go back to the book. That's weird. There's nobody in the live chat. It's weird. Although there was a discrepancy. We have one viewer at the moment. So please, viewer, can you leave a message in the live chat? Maybe the one viewer is on a sort of mobile device. All right then. What? I'll go through these rapport tips for the Enneagram Type 6. Be positive. Since there is a tendency to focus on worst case scenarios, any negativity you exhibit will easily be picked up on and then amplified. Therefore, stay positive and let your optimism rub off on them. Do you think that's truthful, Sana, or it needs to be a bit more nuanced?
It's difficult for me about types that I don't actually have an example of.
Yeah.
I haven't really typed a lot of people with the Enneagram.
Okay. What I will say based on that is, because 6s are people who are doubting Thomases, you wouldn't want to give them something that's overly positive, right? You just want to be glass half full with them. You don't want to be completely positive with them, because they'll just see through that. So it's just glass half full, where it's realistic positivity, where basically they couldn't find anything wrong with it.
I think that definitely works for me, because I do have a strong 6, and I'm very suspicious of extreme optimism.
Yeah, you sort of get that with ESFJs around Kersey INTJs, ILI, where they sort of like, not only does the ILI object to the emotionality coming at them, but they also like the positive nature of it, like the jolly hockey sticks kind of thing. Because there is that doubt there. So number 2, make decision making for them as easy as possible. Don't overload them with too many options. Start off by asking them to make small, relatively easy decisions. Then whatever they decide, go along with it. If you complain or overrule them, it will only hinder their ability to decide that much more next time. Making criticism-proof decisions in small matters helps them make bigger decisions later. Ah. Yeah. I'll say that again, and I can see if you. I don't know if you've got any comments on that. I would say what that's like, because this is from the book Personality Selling. And so what I would think there, what they're trying to do there is it's like a yes sheet where you get the customer used to saying yes. And so you build up this flow of, oh, I'm agreeing with this salesman so far. And so it's like this bit here. If you complain or overrule them, it will only hinder their ability to no, it's this one here. Making criticism-proof decisions in small matters helps them make bigger decisions later. Stay grounded and be reassuring. Yep, especially if they're like the SJ kind of 6. 6s need a good deal of reassurance to allay their anxieties. Yes, reassurance can come in the form of non-verbal signals, physical closeness, and affection, rather than pep talks or logical debates. Ooh, I have to be careful there. Sometimes just hanging out with 6s allows emotional attachments to form and anxieties to dissipate. Okay, yes, because they want the support and guidance. Yeah.
6 is a head type, so it doesn't make sense for me to suggest that you shouldn't approach from the logical side.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be what I've learned from you is that you are not, whatever you do the right thing in the moment because you're tuned in with the other person. You're not analyzing it as going through like the mental Rolodex. Oh, they have done this, therefore I should do that. In like an NT kind of way. It's like a natural reading of the other person and responding naturally.
True.
Right.
Well, I don't know if that's related to 6 or just, well, just me.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is with the, I mean, you have the NIFX preferences, and then also that's being developed through experience and also through the career you want to go into, counseling. So you're going to be aware of, there's a little bit of an anecdote about Milton Erickson that somebody asked him, how did he know a woman was going into a trance? And the woman was sat on the opposite side of the room, and he said, oh, because I noticed the pulse slowing on her leg. Yes, that is some definite sensory acuity. Yeah, don't take an unfamiliar point of view. Well, that makes it sound like the 6 is like an SJ. Yeah, they want a familiar point of view. Let's look at his reasoning though. Since they can be paranoid skeptical, if you take a new point of view, make sure you immediately demonstrate that you are on their side. You don't. It's evasiveness. Be straightforward, grounded, and don't dance around the issues. Right, this is a point I'd like to make now about why ESTPs are so effective as con men. So you got the here, evasiveness. So if you're evasive to a 6, it's like, oh, they're not answering the question. They've got something to hide. Whereas an ESTP like Trump, they'll come out and tell a direct lie with no... So it's like people interpret that as, oh, he's a straight talker. Because not being evasive. Because I actually remember talking to a young INTJ resembler about this, and to him that blew his mind. The fact that somebody can lie and yet be very direct about it, because what their strategy was for detecting lies is people get uncomfortable, they start getting evasive, they don't want to be sort of on record as saying it. Whereas a lot of politicians, they are evasive, they evasive, prevaricate. Whereas Trump will just come out and say, this is the greatest economy we've ever had. 2 years ago, it was the worst. NAFTA was the worst deal in history. This deal that replaces it, where there's like 2% difference, this is now the greatest deal in history. And he'll just come out and he'll just say something that's directly not true, and people will believe it because it's so direct, and because they see it as, oh, this is straight talking, this is somebody being frank.
Yeah, it does boggle my mind as well.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what you get, those, because that's what people assume when somebody is frank. They think, oh, they're an honest straight talker, because they do the complex equivalence between somebody talking straight and somebody being honest. Because usually honest people do talk straight. I think what Jeff once said with the STP is, it's like the other, they tell the truth until they're not. Till it becomes advantageous to them. Right, evasiveness, pressure them. Well, of course, you don't want to pressure a 6. Right, they're usually under pressure, under enough pressure, then they are trying to satisfy the demands, particularly any conflicting demands or expectations placed on them. Any unnecessary pressure will just serve to fuel their anxiety. And I would think if they were a counterphobic 6, any kind of pressure on them would make them come back sharply. Right. So let's have a look at the 4 viewers at the moment. So 4 viewers. Are you able to type? You see, the thing is, I can't really ask them that, can I? Are you able to type in the chat? No, I can't type in the chat. And then I wouldn't see anything.
You do have to be logged in to YouTube to be able to type.
To be able to type?
Yeah.
Oh, you probably do.
Use your account too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, because I remember seeing it now where it's always like somebody's name will pop up.
Yep, it'll use your YouTube username, or well, your Google username.
Right, so you 4 people watching, please log in and ask a question in the live chat. Right, so let's have a look at the 7s. Right then. The rapport tips for 7s. A lot of this stuff is... So, I won't ask Sana because, you know, there's lateness of the hour that she can chip in when she wants.
I do know a 7, though. Well,
oh, okay. So what are your rapport tips for the 7, the do's and don'ts?
Don't be negative. It would appear. At least, I mean, you can talk about negative things, but at least my father doesn't like to really dwell in them.
Right.
He can be excessively optimistic for my taste.
Do you think for him that's a case of his 9-ness?
I don't know. I think he just genuinely enjoys life. Kind of weird to me sometimes.
That is a great line from a 4. He genuinely enjoys life. Kind of weird to me. Right.
Well, I mean, yeah, I kind of envy it a little bit, but
I'm just typing in the chat. And Enneagram communication do's and don'ts. Right then. So I think you said be positive. I think you said. Did you say that, Sana? I think you said be positive.
Yeah, though I'm having trouble specifying exactly what I mean by it.
Yeah, I'm okay because it's pretty much got it here as like be optimistic or at least realistic with them.
Sort of, yeah, like focus on the positive potentials rather than focusing on what's going wrong and, you know, dwelling in it.
All right. And some of these things in hindsight, like give them plenty of room. Yeah, because they love their options. This one might be tricky for some people. Match their enthusiasm and energy levels.
Yeah, no chance.
I think, what about when you're really on your territory, though? So when you're gaming with others, do you think you could match them? Or a little bit?
Yeah, but I mean, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. It depends on the person, and it depends on where we interact.
Yeah.
Kind of topics.
Yeah. Yeah, I can actually mention that in real life. So when it says here, match their enthusiasm and energy levels, I'll just read this through and then I'll say what Carol said publicly. Sevens are very passionate, charismatic people and love the company of others who are the same. Now, so Carol said that she learned from doing interaction styles with Dr. Linda Barons that, and she sort of realized how she was when she was doing workshops in a business environment, that her get things going enthusiastic interaction style. Hi, Laura. You're helping. I'm doing a Q&A. We've got 5 viewers, but no questions are coming in. So if you want to ask some questions, I'm just talking about the Enneagram 7 and what Carol Linden said about, because you know the interaction styles. You've got the book. I think you were there in the Zoom event. And Carol said that she had to learn to tone herself down because she was too get things going, too enthusiastic for her. Hello, Laura. For her, for the people there who are more behind the scenes and subdued. Are you able to switch your? Okay. Okay. That was like half a shake because it like went to the side, but it didn't go all the way back. So I'm not quite sure. Oh, I think you're back. You here?
I'm here. Hi.
Hi, Laura. So yes, we're having a Q&A stream. So have you got any questions about typology?
Well, there are questions I kind of asked you in the personal message. I had some of those questions, like with the tri-type and the DCNH. I asked you that stuff.
Ah, right. Oh yes, I'll say what my answer was for the. So Laura was asking about. Is it okay if I tell you what you're asking about the?
Oh, sure, yeah,
about the theory at least. So yeah, Laura was wondering whether because she was looking at the functional accentuations. So, for example, the creative subtype. Initially in the theory, the creative subtype was the 2 EP functions, SE and NE. And that is what it will be on the DCNH literature in English. When we did the Hangouts with Dr. G, he actually said that he added a 3rd function. And so he added FE to the creative. And then what he did for the dominant ones, which were usually the EJ functions of TE and FE, he added SE to that, didn't he, Laura, for the dominants?
Yeah.
And then I think for normalizing, he added SI, which, you know, someone might go like this. Oh, I could have told you that, Victor. They're called SJs. But then for the harmonizing, was it FI that was added to the harmonizer?
I think it was FI.
Yeah, because that would make sense, like with ethics of relations and that. So Laura's question was, getting back to that, is that if someone's a creative subtype, do all 3 of those have to be accentuated? And I think she said, like, because Laura and I both identify as creative subtype,
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what my subtype is because I think I could possibly be harmonizing subtype.
Yeah, I mean your sixness.
Especially now that you mentioned that they accentuate the FI, you know, because I see my FI being accentuated.
Right. So what's happening?
It could even be normalizing. I mean, that's not out of the question either. Right.
Well, now we have Maria join us, so the audience has slightly let us down by not getting the questions in. We're going to have other people. So we have Maria here. So Laura, if you want to ask a DCNH question, Maria is here. If you just ask the question, then Maria can sort of get in when she can.
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, Ben and I were talking about the DCNH, the subtypes, and about the different functions that are accentuated. And Ben was saying that there's now, like, Galenko added a third function. So, for example, the creative subtype accentuates both of the extroverted irrational functions, SE and NE, but then he said that he later on added FE. And
yes.
Then, like, yeah, and then, well, and then, like, for the harmonizing subtype, that accentuates the introverted irrational functions, SI and NI, but then he added FI later on. And I guess my question is, do all of those functions have to be accentuated, like to say you're that subtype?
I would say that he, most recent version that I heard was that he usually says there's like one accentuated function that is irrational and one that is rational, and then another, like there may be another function of the same like rationality as the subtype. Like for creative, it would be NE and FE and possibly SE.
Okay,
that's what he said.
Interesting.
And possibly SE. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's one rational and one irrational.
That was the most recent version of what he was saying.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe he came up with something else lately, but I don't know.
He's like that, isn't he? He is a bit. He is very LII, is Victor.
Because I'm reading about creative subtype, and it's like, okay, I can relate to accentuated NE and FE if I'm an LII, but I don't relate to accentuated SE.
That's why it helps that he mentioned that it's like optional, because for some types it's kind of easier to have it developed, and for some types not necessarily. But NE and FE are usually developed.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I can attribute my social subtype to develop the FE.
So let's say like somebody's the harmonizing subtype, so they probably wouldn't accentuate both SI and FI. It would be like SI and FI, or NI and
harmonizing should be NI and FI and possibly SI, and the normalizing would be, I think, TI and SI.
Okay.
And possibly FI.
Okay.
I hope I got it right, but that's what I.
And what about the dominant subtype? What's that? Would that be TE and SE or FE and SE?
This current version. Because dominants definitely have developed SE.
You cut out a little bit there, Maria. Which types have developed SE? Did you say all dominant?
Dominant subtypes.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if you were to, yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, because the interaction style would be. That was interesting. When I showed Dario the DCNH, he thought there were similarities between DCNH and interaction styles. What it is, though, it operates at a different level. So there are some similarities between the two. It's just that DCNH operates at the level of subtype, and interaction styles operates at the level of type. So so it would be interesting to look at also, and you've read the book, Laura, I wonder if all of the dominant subtype people might show traits in common with In Charge in the Linda Bowen's book. Or
so like behind the scenes, would that correlate with harmonizing subtype?
My personal opinion is that it would be like a Venn diagram thing, where there'd be like slight overlappings of certain traits, just like there's overlappings of traits between type 6 and SJ, where it's not quite because of the same thing. Whereas we can actually look at that, where because I know Victor sees Enneagram as functional accentuation. So it would be interesting down the line in future to maybe think about the relationships between the 64 types with the DCNH and Enneagram, because to me, would a dominant subtype of ENTP be direct? How would their dominance?
I wonder if they'd be more like an Enneagram 8, because I know some ENTPs like they identify with Enneagram type 8, but they might be more likely to be the dominant subtype, and maybe
yeah if they identify with it,
identify more with 7, and I'm not sure about the normalizing and harmonizing subtypes. They might even identify like with 5. You know, they might identify more with the introverted side of it. They might.
I would think,
well, I'm an ENTP, but I'm kind of introverted, and they might.
I would think anyone of normalizing subtype, there is a good chance of a 6 fix or 6 lead.
Okay, so maybe I'm normalizing subtype.
Yeah, that's what I would think. That's what I would think. I would say, just from the but the motivation for it is, so this is the key thing with Laura, folks, is that she doesn't do things in the prescribed way because she thinks it's right. She does it in order to avoid getting in trouble. Is that effectively it, Laura?
That's basically it, yeah.
Whereas when you're then doing something on your own and there's not any sort of repercussions for other people, unless it's like a specific thing like a certain kind of cooking, are you more likely to experiment?
No, but I mean, like I said, I don't know much about cooking, so if it's something I've never cooked before, I'm going to follow the recipe because I want to do it right. I don't want to have to start all over again, especially if I'm cooking it for somebody else. I don't want them to be a victim of my bad experiment. I mean, if I know more about the principles of cooking, then I can know what I can get away with. You know, like, okay, I don't have to add 2 cups of this. 1 cup is fine because I know this is the significance of this ingredient plays this role, and I know what I can kind of get away with, or I could substitute X for Y. But if it's something I'm not familiar with, I know absolutely nothing about, I don't trust myself to experiment and get a very good result from it.
Yeah. As you said there, especially if you're cooking something for somebody else, but say it's not cooking, say it's like the way you research a subject. It's like, you know, that dichotomy, result versus process.
Mm-hmm.
Do you go more result or do you go more process?
Well, probably result. I mean, like if I'm researching something for myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really have a particular method. I just
Right.
Try to quickly find what I'm looking for. Like sometimes I just type the question into Google, or if there's a book on it, I'll jump to the page that is most likely to give the answer to my question.
Right.
But if it's a novel or something, yeah, I'm gonna read it in order, because that's the way it's kind of meant to be read, because otherwise you accidentally see spoilers, or it doesn't make sense to you because you're not getting the right flow of events, you're not seeing the character development. I mean,
what's the thing about spoilers? I never could understand what can be wrong with knowing ahead of time.
Well,
it spoils the surprise, Maria. I mean,
I think it's the sense of surprise, the sense of suspense, kind of the sense of wonder that then kind of makes you want to turn the next page to see what's going to happen next. Now,
I think the surprises I look for, they can be located pretty much anywhere, and they're still surprising because they're surprising by design.
Right. I mean, you can. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, you can know what's going to happen in the end, and then you could still be surprised at something along the way. Maybe what somebody said to someone, or maybe how it came about.
I'm usually surprised by an idea or a concept because it's something that never occurred to me.
Right.
So not really by the flow of events.
There's a key point there. So that's what I was thinking when Maria said flow of events. So I get the impression, Maria, as you said there, you're interested in ideas and stuff, and not so much the mechanical plot mechanics and the plot, but I think what you would like to occur in the correct sequence would be character revelations, because you wouldn't want a spoiler about, say, a certain backstory event in a character that sort
Maybe as an NI type, I just kind of have a see-through quality that I usually can predict more or less how a character would develop.
Yeah, I mean, I got like
I guess that's automatic with me, and doesn't really I don't really need the author as much.
Right, I see what you mean. And also because you're in terms of novels, you've read a heck of a lot of novels, so people pick up on all the techniques and how things are going.
I don't think I read a heck of a lot. I just read. I don't actually read that much. I just I usually stick with and remember things that affected me in one way or another.
Yeah.
I read kind of reasonably much, but not nearly as much as my mother, for instance, who is a 7. For me, as a gut type, it's like other things are more important.
Right.
I listen, or lately it's been mostly listening or reading. I usually read or listen to non-fiction stuff, which can kind of help me with ideas or motivate me to do something.
Talking of that, I have a book for people called The Art of Systems Thinking that people might be interested in. So I'll put that on the shelf of books to read, and it'll probably stay there.
I think it was Victor saying that right types convert energy to information, and left types convert information to energy. So
I get that. Yeah, especially in the case of IEI, where they get the information gets into the TI minus launcher, and then eventually they go into action. Is it like that for you, Maria, where you need the information put in?
Generally, all left types, and this is my heresy thing. I have that little theory about levels and their interaction, and I believe that all left types move from informational level to lifestyle level. That's why in like left countries like US, usually store displays reflect latest literature on nutrition. Something has been in press. So something has been in studies, and it has been in press, and then like next month, it's all on the store shelves because people come looking for it.
Right.
They don't just read and kind of meditate on it. They read something and they went right to the store looking for an item.
Did you say?
And with right types, it's more like they saw somebody in their circles doing things, and they go and do the same. So it's social to lifestyle.
Yeah, and for the six viewers at the moment, I'll say that that's the hangout we're planning to do with Victor next, is on the levels, and the levels are. I'm intuiting that they are fantastic, especially for explaining intertype relations, especially the asymmetric intertype relation, especially the relationship of benefits. So, for example, I'll talk about this, and then Maria can come in later on and say, Ben, you got it completely wrong, or you've got it right. And so I would think, so you've got, say, the relation of benefit between NIFX, IEI, diplomatic contender, INFJ, goes the INFJ, and between INTP, LII, PINX. That's meant to be a relationship of benefit. So you would say, oh, that's pretty asymmetrical. It's going the IEI is the giver, and the LII is the receiver. But that's not what it's like on all levels, because on the information level, it's going from INTP to INFJ. It's just that on the other levels, it balances out. So, for example, on an emotional level, what's that going to be? The psychological level in the P.I.P.S. So you've got, I think it's physiological. Now, I don't know, Maria can actually, is the physiological level might be, because Victor has incorporated NLP into his school of Socionics. So he has eye-accessing cues for diagnosing his Galenko temperaments, the mindsets, as I call them. And the NLP bit I'm talking about is because NLP has a word they call physiology, which is for reading somebody's sort of like body language. And so I'm wondering if the physiological level is that level, just the communication on a kinesthetic level.
I would say that I think I have a good illustration for what interaction on a physiological level is. Sometimes, for instance, family members can just come in the same room. Everybody is doing his own thing, but basically it's for everybody's sake, and it affects everybody. Or just people working next to each other, or in a different way, everything that is called work, something that has to do with like work ethics, deadlines, and stuff like that, is on this level, because you can do like things on different levels, like get psyched up, do research, do networking, but when you submit your project or you work on your project, you involve the physiological level, because that's how, like, where work is done.
Right, yes, because the other P is the psychological level.
So that's my understanding of it, because I see how, and I actually can quote Victor on that, that right types and left types approach the beginning of a work project differently. Left types tend to ask a lot of questions if they have a right type, so if they have a right type boss, he can see it as like slacking or procrastination or something not very good. But they're trying to get enough information to kind of get that switch from information to physiological level.
Mm-hmm. I just had a question.
When you have one of the levels is kind of full, when it's charged, there happens to be a switch from one level to another. So I'm listening.
Yeah, Laura, go on.
Oh, yeah. Well, so you're saying something about like left types tend to ask a lot of questions. But could that also apply to asking types? The clearing dichotomy?
The right spinning types who are questioning, like ILE, may not ask questions at all.
Oh, interesting. So what makes left types ask more questions than right types?
I think it's their way of getting into the work itself. They want enough energy on this information level to make a switch to physiological level, to the work itself.
Well, maybe that makes sense because I read somewhere kind of like result types or left types are kind of detached from the process. You know, like they're seeing like the end result. So is this kind of helping to get them more immersed into the process to get on the physiological level?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of my experience of it. Anyway.
Maria, is there an interaction with the levels with when the shifts occur? Yeah, because we might see that.
I'm sorry, it was noisy here. What did you say?
I was just wondering if there's an aspect of when a type does the shift. Is there a special thing occurring with the levels as well, or I mean, do they operate on the same? So, for example, when it's when you have the beneficiary shift, is it equal on the levels as, say, the type that they then start to look like, or is it a particular level favored, say, for when IEI acts like LII?
I'm not sure because I haven't studied all the levels in the same to the same depth. It's kind of a very complex question. It's worth thinking about, but I don't have a ready answer.
Yeah, and it might be one of those things which is dependent on the context as to which level is activated.
Yeah, and I find it easier to analyze the productive shifts, as Dr. G would put it, because he did mention that the beneficiary shift is not the productive, it's more like a pose persona, and it doesn't affect you on the like I think it's what you're coming at with your question is that it may be more on the psychological / information level, but I'm not sure because I think my weakest level is social. I just didn't get enough training on it, and it's I think the hardest to me for me to look at.
I would say about the social level that there's a lot of non-type factors involved in that, in that it's, if you're around people that don't have the same interests as you, then it's difficult to communicate with them.
Yeah, I definitely experienced that.
So, for example, I can give you, I know there's slight differences with the charges of functions, and it doesn't cross over brilliantly, but I would imagine, okay, if we just stick to the sociotypes, and then we can also mention the Kersey version of it, that I would imagine that SLI has an easier time socializing than ILI, just because, well, SLI is more sensory, and most people are sensory and concrete, whereas what I find, and I'll ask Laura in a moment what it's like for her, is that with me, I don't pretty much want to do small talk if it's just boring stuff with no ideas.
Yeah, I relate to that. Yeah, that's really true for me too.
Yeah, I guess any negativist is a little bit at disadvantage here, but there's a lot of other factors like SLI warm up to people much longer. It takes them much longer to warm up to people. They may it may be easier for them, but they don't really look like they're socializing.
Right.
Ben,
Yes, go on, Sana.
Quickly explain for the chat what the levels refer to.
Right, okay. For the levels in the chat, this is some new theory from Dr. G. It's you've got the P.I.P.S levels. So that's how I remind it. So the first one, it doesn't matter. The ordering is not important. It's just how I remember them as the P.I.P.S levels, the 4 levels. So the first one, you can, I'm just going to say it's the physiological level. So usually that level is like action-based work, as Maria described. Then you've got the information level, and then you've got the psychological level and the social level. And so what I'm saying is that if you have a benefit relationship between TINX and NIFX, it's not the case that NIFX is the benefactor on all of those levels. On the information level, TINX will be the benefactor, because you've got the information that's going towards the launcher position of the NIFX, the IAI. It's just that on the other levels, what the LII is receiving from the IAI is they're getting that positive emotionality. So you've got the emotion level, and you're probably getting stuff on the psychological level as well. So that's already, that relationship is 2 to 1. And the physiological level, probably the IEI might feel shortchanged, but on the physiological level when it comes to the LII, because the LII has not got that power sensing that the IEI is hot for. Does that make some sense, Sana?
Yeah, I was just asking because somebody asked me.
Right. So what we could do is we could take this as an opportunity. Sana, if you have a particular question about LSI, when Maria can, she could come in and maybe answer that.
I don't have any specific questions because my brain is fried.
That's okay.
So I'm just kind of.
That's okay. But whenever you feel like chipping in, if something comes to mind, just chip in, chip away. So yeah. So do you want to say something, Laura?
Well, this is kind of getting off topic a bit. That this is going back to DCNH and the dichotomies.
Yep.
So because and I talked to you, Ben, about this in personal message, but it's kind of like I read about these dichotomies, and I feel like, well, I don't know what side I'm on, because it's like I do a lot of both. Like, for example, like with the one where it's ignoring versus connecting. I mean, sometimes like I can get so wrapped up into what I'm doing or thinking that I don't notice things around me. And so that would be ignoring. But then sometimes I will get really easily distracted by something that's externally going on, like some random noise that's going on in the environment, or somebody walking by. So how do you know which one you are? How do you know which one you are?
Laura, my hypothesis there would be that something that's like a noise that I would say, if it's a constant background, say hum, I think you could like block that out because it's constant. But if it's like a thing that's like beat every now and then, it's like that kind of thing that's like getting your attention.
That is me. Yeah, because it's weird because, like, for example, like if somebody's like, I mean, even if somebody's like coughing or sniffling really loud, like sometimes that'll distract me because it's more of a random sound. Whereas if somebody's just talking in the background, like sometimes eventually I'll just kind of get used to it and tune it out because it's more of a constant sound. So, because it's like I'll work in the library, and somebody will come up to me and they'll complain, oh, these people are talking. And sometimes I won't notice that they're talking because it's kind of fairly, it's not too loud and it's just kind of quiet. But then like if somebody is like doing a more random sound, like they're tapping the pencil really loud, or they're clearing their throat really loud, because it's kind of more random and intermittent, I'll definitely notice it, and it'll distract me. So
I think that's part of the way that humans have evolved, and I think especially people who are 6, it's like it's the difference that makes the difference. We're looking out for things that are the difference from the norm. If it's like constant, so if it's a constant thing, we've assessed it, okay, that's all right, so we mentally ignore that. So it's just that as you said, anything that's intermittent.
So is that more of a static thing then? Because it's like,
I think it's a human thing.
Or is it more human? So it's not really related to like static and dynamic.
I mean, it's like if you've got a police siren, it flashes, is much more noticeable than if it's just constantly on.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's that. And with do conversations distract you as long as you can't really hear the words? Because for me, the words just distract me.
No. If I don't hear the words, they don't distract me. And
I'm the same.
Sometimes
What happens if you do hear the words?
It depends. I might listen in on it to make sure they're not talking about me. That is so 6, I know. But I mean, if it's something that might be of interest to me, I admit I might kind of eavesdrop a little bit. But other than that, I may not really care, and it may not really distract me. It just depends on what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I have a terrible time concentrating. I think the way I interpret the ignoring and connecting thing is I just think of, if you think of the stereotypical Kersey ISTJ, they want everything organized around them. And I've asked Dario about this, and it's like they want their external surroundings to be ordered because then they feel calmer on the inside. And that's part of the thing with somebody, and obviously this can be taken too far to obsessive compulsion. I actually think that when we did the SI hangout, Victor may have put that in as SI when it becomes pathological. He may have put obsessive compulsion, because I know he put ADHD for NE. I'm not sure. So that would be a slight connection with say the Kersey types, because it does seem to me that those types, just thinking about the Kersey Guardians, is, well, it's, you see the difference where when this sort of order breaks down, it's not just that the guardians prefer order because of the benefits of the order. When there's not the order, they get really unsettled by it. And I think you know Elena Ames quite well, Laura, and I think she talked about that she plans 6 months ahead. And I think she wrote publicly in an explanation, it's when the plan goes off track, she doesn't know how to adjust the plan. And so, whereas, yeah, go on.
Got trouble planning time, and I mean, that is her polar function, or her break function in Model G is NI, that intuition of time, and so sometimes she has trouble estimating how long something's going to take, and she'll either overestimate it by a lot or underestimate it by a lot. And I remember a couple times when we would do a Socionics hangout, it's like all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, I have to go to this event. I'm sorry, I gotta leave. I gotta go." And you know, and all of a sudden, it's like all of a sudden it happens. All of a sudden she realizes it. Whereas I would just kind of be constantly kind of watching and monitoring the time in the background.
I would think that there might be it would be interesting to know how that compares with the ESTJ, because I would think that, especially if the ESFJ has got some 2-ish traits, that because they're so other focused, it's like, oh, I've got to do this thing for person A, got to do this thing for person B, C, D, and E, and their time gets sucked up because they think, oh, I can squeeze it in and get it done for them. Whereas ESTJ, with that TE filter, they might go, well, I'll do this in this order and this. It might be easier for them. Maybe their NI break.
Yeah. And it might be easier for them to kind of back away too, kind of like, well, I don't realistically have time to attend to this person, or it's easier for them to set boundaries. I got to limit my time. Whereas maybe ESFJ would overextend themselves, like a half hour easily a half hour easily becomes an hour, and then they got somebody else that they have to attend to after that. Then they lose time for that next person because they spent so much time on the person before that.
So when I mentioned, I think where ESTJ might be worse off than ESFJ is, and actually ESFJ might be actually better off in this, is that it's when actually something goes wrong, at least ESFJ has that introverted thinking to sort of like think on their feet. Whereas I think if you have an ESTJ that's so much in the standard operating procedure that they can't adjust it in the time.
Yeah, and then like the TI kind of looks for that underlying rule or principle.
Yeah,
also in different situations, whereas ESTJ is more like, we do this step, maybe not thinking about the principle. So then it goes wrong, and like, oh gosh, it goes wrong. This is a failure. Now what? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that in terms of, well, I'll put it out there that I think that the more well-developed ESTJs in terms of the intelligence associated with logistics and what they're good at, I think that the more intelligent ESTJs are still want to go to the approved sources, but they're just going to know more approved sources. So it's like, who is, and I do a little bit of that where I go, when I look at these NLP books and I'll go, okay, who's written it? I want to know the credentials of the person who's written it, because like, okay, this is John Grinder. This is the man. I'm going to read this one because this is the guy that co-founded it. Who is this other person?
Yeah.
What are their credentials?
And I mean, I do that to some extent too. Like with Socionics, like I might think, you know, that there's certain people that I'm like, oh yeah, that's a big name, you know, like Gulenko and Augusta and you know, whereas, you know, versus somebody that I've never heard of before. But I still like to give give the person I never heard of before some chance, because sometimes an unknown person in that field can still potentially have a great idea that's worth listening to.
Someone asked a great question in the chat. It says, what are the definitive qualities of the break function? Ooh, well, I think that I would say just learn all 8, because then it really is definitive, because it's definitive to that particular break function, isn't it? Rather than generalizing over above. And I would think that by learning all 8 individually, then you'll be able to see the patterns for your. No, it's a bit of a cop-out answer, but you'll be able to see the patterns for yourself. But what we could do is go through the 8 break functions and discuss them. So Laura and I both identify with SE break in the model. Now, these things can help with, so for example, we're not meant to be good under pressure. Now, but if you go through that series and get development in that situation, so for instance, this hangout, right? Eventually it became really good, but the first half an hour, it was a little bit iffy. But then Laura came in, and Maria came in, and Sana came. We sort of treading water at the start, and now it's getting good. But so it depends how you look at SE as improvising. And I actually think that, and if you look at it from a Kersey point of view, it would be, well, INTP is not that bad at improvising. We're adaptable. Whereas I think it is the case that under pressure. So what is it for you, Laura, that you don't like about pressure?
Well, I think it's, well, you can't, well, it's the demands from people. Kind of like, sometimes it's like meeting the different demands in a given amount of time, and then you don't have time to really think about it. You just got to do it. And whereas I want to, and this sounds very much like the behind the scenes style, like I want to get the best result possible. Well, how do you get the best result possible when you've got to rush it, and you can't put the time that you want into it? So I think that's part of it. And I think also, I mean, there's a couple different things I don't like about pressure. That's one of them. And I think the other thing is these demands from people, like I want it and I want it now. And then I worry about, well, what if I can't give it to them? You know, then what are they going to do? How are they going to react? And then having to resist that, having to react against that, and what are they going to think about me? And, you know, if I can't meet their expectations, are they going to think poorly of me? Are they going to be mad at me, angry? How am I going to deal with their anger? You know, there's that too. And I guess I just don't like the feeling of being rushed, of having to beat the clock. You know, I like to relax doing things and enjoy doing them, you know. What? Did you say something?
Yeah. Okay. I'll say something until Maria talks, and then I'll shut my trap. So a key thing there is, so do you think that always at the forefront of your mind, Laura, whenever you're under pressure, is you're thinking about where this could lead, the consequences?
Exactly. Yep.
Whereas SE DOMs, if you think of the Kersey artisans, and even EPs as well, or because EPs are good at this, when they're in the heat of the moment, even that phrase, the heat of the moment, they're not thinking about the consequences. But if they're skillful enough, because they are so absorbed into the moment, they make the right decisions because they got all of the information there, and they're thinking quickly on their feet.
Yeah,
I think we have problems thinking on our feet because we overthink things.
I so envy those people. You know, I do. I wish I was like that.
Yeah, so we can go through all of these for the break functions. So I would say for any break that I'll put it on the screen for LSI, and then I'll say how I think it's slightly different for yes, because here I have used the Galenko numbers, the Galenko code for it rather, because this is not the same as Kersey ISTP. This is the type unto itself. This is the Putin. The LSI. I would say what I would say for the Kersey ISTP, that is somebody like Sullerbach on YouTube, and he's done videos about how he didn't like Twin Peaks because it's weird. He doesn't like weirdness. And now I personally can see it. If you define extroverted sensing the way Dario Nardi defines extroverted sensing as immersing yourself in the present context, and if you define NE as seeing the patterns and trans-contextual thinking, so seeing the commonalities between situation A and situation B, John Grinder, co-founder of NLP, I believe ISTP, there's a running theme through NLP of being situation specific. And that when you do trans-contextual thinking, you lose everything that's not a commonality. And those things, and you can have very important things that are not commonalities that get deleted in the odious comparison. And John Grinder was a linguist, and he said he didn't like people to learn a language and mentally translate it into another language. He wanted people to keep the languages completely separate. And so for me, the LSI really wants to keep something specific, the specifics of that context, and be immersed in those specifics. Because, and this is why generally SPs will say, if you ask them something about ethics or something like that, they will say, it depends on the situation. That's it. And they'll look at, and STPs especially would look at the NFPs and say, Kersey terms, and say, well, how can you be so absolute across all of those different situations? So that's what NE break looks like. Now, Sana, I don't know if you're awake enough. Have you got anything to say about NE break?
I would agree with you. There's definitely this desire to be specific. I think it's a beta quadra thing, actually, not just LSIs, but LSIs definitely take it to the very extreme. They don't like to mix things. I have a similar attitude, but it's not as strong.
Yeah, but as soon as I did hangouts with Sanu, it was like we did about the first 5 minutes. Ben, I don't like it how you mix the systems.
Yeah, I do that.
Right, so now we can do what the other ones look like. So, so FE break. Well, reduced emotional affect. The fact that they care about what they think is right, and those people who are close to them, they don't care about people that they don't know. They don't care about what their image is. And Dario, the way he writes the FE chapter in 8 Keys to Self-Leadership, he sort of puts FE things in TE terms. So it's like having a good reputation is good for business. So it's like not for the sake of FE, it's for the sake of something else. So it's really, it's like a blind spot for the ILI, the INTJ, and where it becomes, so INTJ, they're being honest. they're being they will see themselves as the honest critic. And they're saying, and then they'll see it as, I'm pointing out the truth. I am helping this person by pointing out the truth. Now, that might be their intent, but what will then come out in maybe in the way they do it, and also because they're not tuned into what their tone of voice might be like, because that's another thing that comes in with FE break, is they're not really attentive to emotions and how things are said. Is that fair, Sana, for the FE break?
Yeah, I think it's definitely present. They don't know this because they don't care about the emotional impact. They don't consider that other people do care, and then they kind of get in trouble with that.
Yeah. Do you think they're a little bit better with people close to them?
Well, yeah, that's a completely different situation.
Yeah.
Different rules.
Yeah, and it's almost like the FI gets switched on, the subjective feeling. I care for this person, and therefore, so it's like getting into a different result because a different process is engaged. So, Sana, what is TE break like? I mean, you can use a computer better than me. What is TE break like?
I don't identify with the stereotypical technological problems. I don't have any of those. I'm very comfortable with technology and can build my computer if I have to and all that stuff. However, I do suffer from if I have to, if it's demanded of me that I'm that I have to be very concerned about being efficient and doing things in an efficient manner. I did have a job where I had to do that, and it was very difficult to deal with. It was a constant source of stress. Even though I could do it if I had to, it was never natural. So I think for me, the TE break mostly comes out in that kind of a situation.
So in this drive for efficiency, what do you think, which value do you think was being compromised? Was it things to do with considerations for people?
No, it's just the act of having to consistently and constantly for long periods of time be aware of all the moving parts in a situation that do not have to do with people.
Right.
But rather the TE information. It's just difficult for me to focus on that because it's not something I enjoy.
Right. I would say that here's a big non-type factor. So, Sally, you've got your first PC or access to a PC when you were 4, and your father worked for IBM. So these are non-type factors that are bumping up your IT ability.
Yeah.
All right then.
Plus, so, I don't identify with like the spending on a whim type of stuff that's mentioned in the Model G IEI description either. I'm not like that at all. For me, it's mainly just what I described.
When we did it with Chris Montoya, he blushed at that bit because it was a bit of recognition.
Right. Yeah, I would say that I'm the complete opposite of what it claims in that sense.
Victor didn't bother to type Chris Montoya because it's so obvious.
Yeah. And for me, I don't relate to that at all either. But I'm like a self-preservation type. So it's like, I always have to make sure I have enough money and I don't run out.
Yeah.
I think it's also one of those non-type factors. I was raised a specific way.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. My parents too, they were always careful about money and stuff too. So I wonder if some of it's related to upbringing.
Oh yeah, definitely. I remember Dario saying at one point that he thinks someone's personality type or best fit type, as he always says, is only 50% of it at most. And I think he said culture, education, career. No, he said culture. No, I think he said upbringing, education, and career. And I sort of expanded that to the Ibru Kiki. to sort of like get individual social status. Wait a minute, I got a graphic of it. I'll put it in a moment. So we mentioned the NI break with ESFJ and ESTJ, and about how when the plan goes wrong, they really don't know how to quickly adjust the plan the way the NTJs can, or the NJs can do with people. SI break, well, we've got 2 examples of that with both Holly and R-Dub had stress-related illnesses. So it really, what they call it is like the stress had become somaticized, I suppose is the right way to phrase it. I'm not sure. So yeah, stress. Holly had stress-related illnesses. Yes, Laura?
Oh, yeah. So you think the stress-related illness was kind of a result of their SI break, like they weren't listening to their body,
yeah.
so they just got sicker and sicker?
Now, the thing is, though, and this is
more with how they cope with that illness. I mean,
that was it. They were ignoring it at first, but this is where the break function can be ironic. In that, so consequently to that, they now pay a hell of a lot of attention to it. But it's like they actually pay more attention to it, well, especially in the case of R-Dub, than actually what she would like to do. So the preference is still there. Hey, I don't want to have to press all this effort in to get my diet absolutely right so that I don't become ill.
Yeah.
So it's still not valued. It's not as if they like turn over a new leaf and suddenly become an SI Dom. It's like they concentrate on their diet for very practical reasons of this was making me ill. I don't want to be ill. I want to be healthy so that I can achieve great things.
You know what, Ben? I'm like that too. I mean, I don't like having to put a lot of energy like into having to take care of my body or having to plan meals and stuff. And I kind of do it because I want to avoid pain and I want to avoid inconvenience. And when you're sick, you can't get the things done that you want to get done. I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit there with SI plus, but it's slightly different in your case. And I think a bit of that is E6 and maybe a bit of upbringing as well. So I asked Victor about this, and he did say yes. They need their food before they can like do their studying. Oh, bless the INTPs. They need to be well fed before they can do their reading.
Well, I mean, I can kind of relate to that. Like I get very sensitive to the effect of hunger pains. Like if I'm over hungry or something, it does affect my thinking. And it doesn't matter so much what I eat, but just that I eat something to kind of get me going.
All right, okay. Someone was asking me about the break question. They were saying here, break has an energy level in Model G. What process is engaged in break? No, it's called break as in like a handbrake. You know, you could also be translated to halt. It breaks. Okay, I'll explain it what it's like for ILI. So Laura and I said that we are impeded from acting in the moment because we have all of these consequences ahead of us. Oh no, we don't do that; it will escalate. So is there a tendency with Laura? I mean, I know Z6 things as well, but you don't want to confront somebody because it's like, oh, well, it could escalate like this.
Yeah. And there's a lot of unknowns too. Like if you don't know the person that well, you don't know how they're gonna react. So then you kind of have to plan for all the possible scenarios, kind of like, well, plan for the worst and hope for the best, I guess. But I mean,
maybe we overanalyze it. Whereas somebody like Sana, they know. But
then sometimes, you got to confront somebody because you know that if you don't confront them, it's going to be worse in the long term.
Right.
And I'm very much a long-term thinker, so. Like if you don't confront them, and then this problem is just gonna escalate in the future, and it's gonna become a bigger problem.
That's interesting.
as unpleasant as I can find confrontation, then I feel like I have no choice but to confront them.
That is an interesting. That is a great example, I think, of one of the wrinkles in Enneagram Type 6, where
it's a very damned if you do and damned if you don't kind of thing. And,
what I mean is like how like you've just given there the same reason that you've given the same reason for not confronting is in a different situation is the reason for confronting, because as you said, if you don't, then things are going to get worse in the future. And so you can have this thing where it's where people talk about the inconsistency of the 6, where sometimes they can appear cowardly in quotation marks, and in other situations very brave. And from the outside it will look like, whoa, what's going on here? Whereas I think that example you gave there was a good one for explaining on the inside why you might react one way one time and a different way the other, and it's still the same process of looking at the consequences.
Yeah, because I always have my eye out on how this is going to affect the long term of things, like my long term well being. It isn't just in the moment, and oftentimes I will sacrifice the immediate moment if I can guarantee a better future.
Yeah, you're very self-praised, aren't you, Laura? Right then. Here's I'll do TI break last, because that is actually because something that has been brought to my attention by just various things and just thinking about ENFP is not being ENFP is a break with TI and different from ESFP. They're very different in how they are when it comes to the break function. But talking about FI break, well, if people want to know what FI break is, well, ESTPs and ENTPs. There you go. They have their problems with. I mean, Jack Aaron will tell you about his FI break. He will actually talk about it, where it's just these issues of commitment, and I think it's slightly accentuated in those two types, say ENTP and ESTP, if they are like also resemble a 7, because the 7 wants options, and so the options will like triumph over loyalty, right, if a better option comes along. Whereas maybe the Enneagram 8 ESTP might be a bit more loyal because they cherish loyalty. I think the 8s really cherish loyalty. Have you heard that, Sana? Do the 8s cherish loyalty?
Sorry, I missed.
Yeah, I was just saying, do the Enneagram 8s cherish loyalty?
I think so, in a way.
Because I was thinking about how the FI break might look different between ESTP 7s and ESTP 8s.
I mean, it's a question of loyalty to what?
Well, just people. I just thought maybe an 8 ESTP might be more loyal to people than a 7.
Well, I think 8 is going to be protective.
Yeah.
So there is loyalty in the sense of who you're protective of.
So we could make a hypothesis there that the healthy 8 might not be as FI break as the 7, because if the 7 really is prizing the best option.
Well, I mean, I don't think you can really say that there is no loyalty for FI break. It's just going to it's gonna go through a different process.
Yeah, it just takes second place because of.
I don't think it even takes a second place. I think it's just that, for example, my father, I would characterize him as very loyal. It's just that he processes things with FE instead of FI.
Ah, right, yeah, that's where balance is coming in. Where in your father's got strong FE, I would say, and like you said, he resembles the 9. And of course, the 9 very much
7, but I think he does have a 9 in his.
Yeah. So as you said with the FE, so he very much cherishes. I think we talked before that you think he's into the harmony thing.
Well, more so than I am.
Right. So development of other functions can come in to balance things out. So an ENTP resembler, an ESTP resembler, if they've got well-developed FE, they can maybe get to the same result that FI would get to, but with a different process. So, for example, they do the right thing for FE reasons rather than FI reasons, and that's because they want to keep their reputation up as a good person, not as somebody who is a scoundrel.
Just that, the FE user wants to be nice to people. Yeah. Because, I mean, I don't think you need to be FI valuing to have strong sense of ethics.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, especially, but then you're starting to get the objective ethics or the socially based ethics of their culture.
I think you can have a very, very strong ethical framework with TI.
Oh yeah, don't I know that? Right. Damn my ethics. Right. And of course, TI break. This is the interesting one. This one is really interesting because this really varies, in my opinion, between ESFP and ENFP. So ESFPs are what you classically think of when you think of TI break, in that they don't like theoretical stuff. They just don't like it unless it's factual. They just do not like it. So I get that with Jeff. And he said, so for instance, and he makes good points, like when somebody says my tertiary in the third position, my tertiary T, and Jeff is like, well, how do you know it's tertiary? How do you know? How do you know the functions are organized in that order? How do you know? So it's like continually questioning the theory. So that is how we usually think of TI break. When you look at the ENFP profile, and that will bring it up, it is a little bit different. And this is something that I think people would take to mind is it's not the thing that they're really weak at, it's the opposite charge of the function that's in that position. So what I've got to do is I've got to find ESFP. It should be this one. So that's not the right one. That's SLI. I need which is this one? SEI. SI. Okay, it's going to be up here then. Okay, here it is. This is it. So TI plus. So what this really means is that what they're really weak at is TI minus. So for example, ILI, here's the INTJ. In that box, they have FE minus. What they're really bad at, FE plus. Showing positive emotions and doing the ESFJ thing. The positive emotionality. And they're better at showing negative emotions than positive emotions. So here.
So
this is. Go on, Laura.
Oh, so with the break function, so what you're really bad at is like the opposite sign that it shows in the box.
Yeah.
So like for LII, we'd be really bad at SI plus.
Yeah. And also, I think that when we overreact, we can then appear a little bit dominating.
We can appear SE minus then.
Yeah, that's what I reckon.
So you think we kind of use SC minus more than SC plus?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, but in a kind of a destructive way.
In a way where it's when we're rattled, and it's a case of INTP is overreacting. Ooh,
Make it sound like a dictatorial dictator.
Yeah, there's certainly a dick bit in that, in dictatorial. The INTP is being a dictatorial person.
Dictatorial. I couldn't see the word right. But I mean, when I read about SC, and it's like the description of SE minus versus SC plus. Like SC plus is more like, you know, being able to establish boundaries and being adequately able to defend yourself. And it's like, I read that and I respect that. You know, I don't think I devalue that, but then I read about SE minus, like kind of forcing others to comply with you and get what you want, and establishing this hierarchy where you're on top and the rest of the people are on the bottom. That kind of SC repulses me. And I guess, but the other side of SC, I may be lousy at it, but I respect that. And I think that's a good quality to have, you know. I mean, it's good to be able to defend yourself. I mean,
I think what's compromising the theory in that aspect is your sixishness, because the six wants support and guidance. And so that's very much opposite of the SE minus.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, I don't identify with that. I think for me, it's TE minus that I struggle with, not TE plus.
Okay, TE. It's looking. I'm trying to view it.
That makes sense though with the theory, because as you said there, you struggle with TE minus. IEI is a little
confused. Okay, I may have gotten confused.
Yeah, because I think you said before that you don't spend money lavishly. Oh, okay, I get it.
I could. Okay, it's TE plus that I struggle with. TE minus, I don't think is such a problem.
Right. Yeah, because TE minus is associated with being it's business logic of savings. Yeah. And TE plus is more speculative.
Right. So I struggle with the specific TE specified in my description.
Yeah. I'll remind people. Yeah. I'll remind people that the way Victor defines these functions is pretty much like an embodiment of the lead function of a type. So if you think of SE plus, just think of SEE. Just think of SE of ESFP. When it's defined in SE minus, think of ESTP, and probably a ESTP that's a little bit of well, you know what I mean, a little bit unhealthy in the way it defines SE. And so he's pretty much basing it on that. So in a sense, Victor's definitions of the functions are very empirical, in that it's like, and he even put in the PDF that we did, it's like he always says, like for TE plus, this is how LIE operates, and for TE minus, this is how LSE operates. So it's very, but that means that is the assumption. The assumption then is, just because it acts like that in that type, does that necessarily mean that that function is then the same in different positions of different types? Now, sometimes it does pan out and you get these interesting patterns, and that happens in this type when I get to ENFP. So, right.
But how do you, I mean, if it works for you, it doesn't work for me. How's that even a pattern instead of just coincidence?
Well, well, you might have to compare it with other people. Well, it works for me with the ENFPs, because I'm thinking, hang on a minute, they're not TI break the way ESFPs are, and it works for INTJs and it works for other types. Now remember, these are, well, I will remind you, because you already do know that we are dealing with patterns and human beings, so they're all going to be outliers to the patterns.
Yeah, of course. It's just that I'm not sure that it's a valid point at this point.
I see what you mean. Right? It's up to debate for whether it's a coincidence or whether it is a legitimate pattern. All right. But it works for me when I see, like, when I look at ILI, that their FE break is different from SLI?
I don't know any SLIs. Would be interesting.
Well, the only one I know that for sure, I mean, is Farah.
Mm.
But it makes sense. It's difficult with the SLI because it's one of those types that doesn't translate over very well into Kersey.
Well, it doesn't have to translate over to.
Well, it does for me in order to try and work out whether someone's a type, and then I've got my suspicions that maybe the profile might not be accurate for various deductive reasons that I won't go into.
Yeah, but you can still type people separately in Socionics without caring about their cursor type.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, though, there's different interpretations in different schools of
This
Socionics.
is where I just tell you, keep them separate.
Yeah. It's like when we went before at the start of the hangout through the various Enneagram types, when you said, well, I can't really say because I've not got experience of that type. Yes, Laura?
Oh, nothing. I'm just.
Oh, I thought you did the gesture. You did your little, because we were discussing a few days ago, the gesture.
No, false alarm.
Right, so that is the wrong type. That is NETE, and I want NEFE. Right, so that's NET, so that means... Okay, that's the thing about Bjork. Yes, Bjork, ENFP. This was 2001. All right, that's ENFP. Where is ENFP? Oh, that's going to be the model. I need NEFX. Right. Is that should be ENFP. Yes, ENFP, right. So the break of this type is different from ESFP. So I just started to notice this, and I started to think, hang on a minute, these ENFPs are okay with theory. They're not like ESFPs. But when you look at the definition of TI+, it's all about following a rigid structure, like LSI. And what does it say here? This is all the stuff here that it says that they're bad at is all TI+ stuff. Cannot handle finicky work. Isn't good at monitoring the details. That's all TI+ stuff in Socionics, isn't it? It's not TI-. So even though it's TI- in the box, what it's really referring to, in my opinion, is being bad at TI+.
It's sort of like they got the signs. They should have reversed the signs for this, because it would make more sense. Like the break should be what you're really bad at, and the sign should reflect that. Or what you so I mean, it would make more sense to say break for ENFP, and NEFE would be, or NEFX would be TI+, not TI-. And
I think it's my fault for not noticing it earlier. But there we go. This is where you can see just how different these two functions are, where TI+ sounds very much like MBTI-SI, I suppose, or Kersey. And this is why SEI with launcher TI+ seems very much like ISFJ.
oh, what's ISFJ?
Kersey ISFJ. I think that the humanitarian socionica SEI matches up quite well. It's like 85% to 95% with ISFJ, because it's got launcher TI+. And it's like when you look at the profile of SEI, it says, oh, they like to follow step-by-step instructions and all this kind of stuff. And they like to look at the manuals. And I'm thinking, okay, that's ticking the SJ box.
But that launcher would be TI+. Would be the plus side.
TI+. The TI+ is about following the rules and a strict...
As opposed to TI-.
Yeah, which is like when you get to SLI, and the social mission block is SI+, TI-, and also the TE plus is played down, because in Victor's system, you know what I mean? He even switched around the creative and the demonstrative. So his SLI is a little bit more like the artisan, and even calls it like the craftsman or the crafter, the master. So it's even more, I would say that his LSI is even more ISTJ than, say, Model A LSI, because the auxiliary function is played down. So anyway, that's all very much in the weeds of stuff. So there, I mean, as you see here, do you notice? I always point this out. Look at how Victor gets digs in the actual definition. This is not me adding it. That is how it was translated. That is in the official definition, where he's saying that is the logic of information socionics as well as the structural logic of LSI. So he is calling the Model A people the World Socionic Society people. And what does their mission statement say? In all of the World Socionic Society groups, and this irks me, our aim is the standardization of all socionics. So we aren't standard. Victor's socionics is not standard. So it's like this here, linear either or way of thinking. Stubbornly assuming, here we go, while considering all other structures incorrect. So
World Socionic Society is
T.I.P.S.
T.I.P.S. and Humanitarian Socionic Society is T.I.-.
Yes. He even puts that in there. This is the logic of energy of synergistic socionics. He's always getting these digs in. And I don't blame him. But you can see what it's like, isn't it? I mean, well, it's like, this is the framework. What other typologies of nonsense?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Just take what works.
Well, I like T.I.P.S.
Well, you would do. That's weird to me, in that you like TI plus, but you don't like TE.
It's not that I don't like TE; it's that I'm bad at it.
Ah.
There's a difference.
So to you, what is the difference between TE and TI plus?
It's just the ability to actually keep track of the practical details happening around me.
Ah. Do you think that the TE process takes you too much out of what you want to do?
No, it takes too much effort. It's very draining.
Right. Yeah, okay.
I have to focus. It goes against my natural flow.
Would you say that your natural focus is either within yourself or towards somebody's emotional state or psychological
I would say
state?
either my own or somebody else's psychological state.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
Includes emotions, but is not necessarily about it.
Yeah. I think I just about in time corrected myself when I said emotional, no, psychological. Right, so that actually fits in with the Kersey idea of, and also the social mission, the role variant of counselor, so that they, right, okay, so that makes time. Downtime, which is the unconscious. It's got an unconscious aspect to NI, as well as a temporal aspect to it. So yeah, going back to this. So this is how ENFP is a TI break. It's in a different way from. So what this sort of does to me is this makes me think, if we're going to do some white logic, as the socionics people call it, I'm going, okay, if we are defining the weakest function in ENFP as TI+, therefore, logically, TI+ must be a thing. And LSI logically must exist because it's the opposite of ENFP. So, and I can find one of them, and that's Putin. It's hard for me to find. That's right.
Yeah.
Because it's this weird combination of like, and Catherine and I are on the same page where we think counterphobic 6 for Putin, where it's like he's stroking that cat and he's got fear in his eyes. Come on. Right, so here, That's true. Does not respect formal subordination. You try and get ENFPs into Hangouts. Does not always find convincing and reasoning for does not draw logical conclusion out of his negative experience. That's interesting. Yeah, not good at the TI+ stuff. So yeah, very different from ESFP. So for instance, you can have a lot of intellectual, because if you didn't take account of charges, then you would have a conversation with an ENFP and you would think, hang on a minute, you're giving me good logic. Are you sure you're not ENTP?
Yeah. It's like, how are you TI break?
Exactly. So that's where there's a little
TI plus break. Your TI plus.
Exactly. So that gives a little bit of evidence there for Victor might be onto something with his charges.
Yeah.
So that's that. So to that person that wanted to know more about the break function, we have gone through all 8 break functions. Now then, so Laura, are you able to see the messages on the? Because what I can do is I can show them on the webcam.
The messages, which
there's a live chat. I don't know how many devices you have. It might make it difficult for you to see. What I'll do is I'll show it on the on my camera.
Well, I'm doing this from my laptop.
Right. Okay. So this is the live chat.
Oh, I'm not in that. No.
Oh, that's okay. But what we can do is I can actually show you what. Yeah, but what I can do is show you what people are asking. Right.
Okay.
Right. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's see what people have been asking.
I didn't see any of that.
Well, I had problems seeing it for about half of the Hangout, and it was Santa that mentioned something, and then I reloaded it, and it suddenly all popped up. So I'm seeing this thanks to Sana. Normalizing an SJ. Yeah, I think there's some overlap with it, but I don't know enough about the actual subtype profiles in order to like make my own comparisons. Not a very informed or keyed-in audience. Oh yeah, I think that was referring to the people in messages. I'm not quite sure. Retro gamer may be an ENTP resembler. I'm not sure.
Know. But he says I have no enthusiasm or a positive interaction style, at least no consistent one. Could that be ILI maybe? Like kind of like, well.
That is a great point there, because about the truth seeker.
Then he kind of makes a harsh judgment, not a very informed or keyed-in audience. I mean, I don't know. I see
what he's saying though, because the overall, because it is called that type is called the critic. It does focus on the way things can go wrong, and that's even in the Cozy profile, where they're contingency planning, looking for where things can go wrong, and if it goes wrong, what do we then do? So it's almost, in NLP terms, they are away rather than toward. Although they have toward as well, because they're good at going towards goals, but they're also going away from things that can go wrong. Whereas ENTJ is more toward than away. So yeah, I would say he's right. She is right with True Seeker when because the overall cast of the ILI is sort of a negativist, critical person. That's going to make it extra hard for them to suddenly put on a face, as Haley calls it, and to suddenly be all positive, because it goes against their natural disposition of the critic.
I think you would need to read these in context, because they were posted as we were talking.
Right.
And this part was quite a long time ago.
Yeah. Right, here we go. But I still think it's interesting, and I take what's on board. But I think there's an interesting point there about the viewpoint of an ILI resembler, and it is something I needed to consider in terms of the whole type, because the overall view is critical, and so FE plus is going to be really far away from that, where suddenly, oh, I'm just going to be bright and optimistic and jolly organizer like ESFJ.
Yeah, I'm not any of those things, and I'm an FE user, so.
Yeah, I know, but we talked. Yeah, but you're a melancholic Enneagram 4 and Beta Quadra.
I don't even think I'm melancholic. I'm just very grumpy, I suppose.
Right. Yeah, we SE and LII. Yeah, we've done that. We sort of covered that. Let's go towards the end and see what we got here. Rigid structured data. Humility versus arrogance. 152. I don't know. Maybe when we talked about FI.
So the time on here, 159. Or
Yeah,
is
that's
that
my time. That's my time. Yeah.
That's your time. Okay. Aren't you?
Yes.
Are you tired yet? So it's like 2 a.m.
Yeah, but on my territory, it's called that supervisation. It's a thing, and you're as well. You're also getting a little. You're getting enthusiastic.
Well, yeah, it's only 8 p.m. where I am.
Right, here we go. Right, Enneagram Model G. Okay, so we've sort of answered that one about the TI plus. Right, Retro Gamer. We've answered most of that person's questions. You are my Duggar Daddy. Right. Yeah, okay, that's pretty much. And then earlier stuff. Right. Yeah, Model G subtypes. Oh, yeah, that's oh, very good. Anyway, so Laura, I will go over to Laura and ask if we can sort of wind up with Laura. Do you have any questions, Laura? Because I know, the reason why I'll build up to this is because sometimes it's difficult for you to get into Hangouts because of your schedule.
Yeah, I got kind of a weird work schedule. Not really at the moment, no.
Hopefully we had a little bit of more clarity with the DCNH. Oh, I think you said you watched. Did you watch all 3 of the DCNH Hangouts?
I watched them all. Yep.
Ooh, yep. What did you think of them?
They were really interesting, but it's like I still feel like I can't pinpoint my DCNH subtype for sure. The only thing I know. Yeah, I mean, I'm just not sure my DCNH subtype. It's like
yeah, you'd need to see all 4 profiles, and
because I would need to have like my type in all 4 of the DCNH subtype, and then I can watch them in action, and then I could say, oh yeah, I think I fit this one the most,
right?
Because the DCNH is really
right
as it pertains to a subtype of a socionics type rather than a personality type on its own. It's kind of like, because I'm kind of like a mix of all of them except for dominant. I know I'm not the dominant subtype, but I feel like I'm kind of a mix of the other 3, and it's like, yeah.
Right, okay. I'm gonna end this Hangout. Well, I mean the recorded portion with a big hint for some. So, do not be surprised, people, if a Socionics book is released in English that goes through all 64 profiles.
Ooh.
I'm just saying it's not impossible.
Yeah.
There we go. I'll leave you on that bombshell. That we will know more. We probably, maybe we'll know more about DCNH in a couple of years, less than a year, maybe 5 years. I don't know, but I've hinted at it. Right. Right. There we go. There we go. So hopefully this has turned out okay.